She was 17 the first time it appeared. Not as something monstrous, not as a thing to fear, but as a small, almost laughable imperfection beneath her skin. Anna Thompson had just finished a workout at the school gym. The air still smelled of rubber mats, chalk dust, and the faint metallic tang of sweat. Her shoulders, strong and eager, gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. She had been proud of them, those shoulders broad from swimming, lean from track, a canvas of youth that promised nothing but strength and possibility. That afternoon she showered quickly, hair damp and dripping against her back. She stood before the mirror in the cramped bathroom of her family's small Houston home. The glass was fogged, streaked with moisture, her reflection blurred into watercolor. With a careless hand she wiped the condensation away, leaned closer, and sawed a bulge no larger than a marble just below her left shoulder blade. At first she thought it was muscle. Maybe she had pulled something. Maybe a knot from overdoing it at the gym. She poked it with her fingertips, firm, unyielding, yet painless. Nothing to worry about, she told herself. She had no time for worry. At 17, the body felt like a machine that could not break, only falter briefly before rushing back into perfect form. But, as she pulled on her shirt, a thought lodged itself in her chest. What if it doesn't go away? Days turned to weeks. The lump remained. Still small, still painless, but stubborn. Each night after practice, she would glance at it in the mirror, half hoping, half dreading that it had disappeared. It never did. By 18, it was undeniable. The bulge had grown subtle beneath fabric but noticeable in the harsh honesty of her bedroom mirror. She pressed against it harder, searching for pain for some reason to explain its presence. Nothing came. Only silence. Anna learned the art of hiding without meaning to. She wore looser shirts, avoided tank tops, stopped joining her friends at the pool. They teased her lightly, "You always cold," but she laughed it off. What could she say? That there was something inside her body that didn't belong, something unnamed. She lacked the language for it, so she wrapped herself in silence. The silence became heavier than the lump itself. Her friends still called, still invited her to parties, still asked about the boy from math class who seemed interested. She smiled, nodded, gave excuses. At night, she lay in bed and pressed her hand against her shoulder, feeling the quiet defiance of the thing beneath her skin. A marble had become a stone, and the stone carried weight not just on her body, but in her spirit. By 19, she had discovered the power of the hoodie. It was an accident at first, a gray pullover she threw on one breezy afternoon. The fabric sagged gently over her shoulder, hiding the unevenness. For the first time in months, she walked through the crowded hallways of her community college without feeling the invisible question marks in people's eyes. The hoodie became her armor. She wore it again the next day and the day after that. Soon, it no longer mattered if the Texas heat climbed into the 90s. The hoodie remained. Underneath, the lump continued to grow, but no one could see it. And if no one could see it, perhaps it wasn't real. That was the bargain she made with herself. Dinner. There were moments when the illusion shattered. Once at a family barbecue, an uncle clapped her on the back with the careless enthusiasm of adults who forget how fragile young people can feel. Pain shot through her shoulder sharp and sudden, and her breath caught in her throat. "You okay?" he asked, half smiling. She nodded, quickly retreating to the shade, pulling her hoodie tighter, though the sun beat down mercilessly. Sweat pooled at her collarbone, trickled down her spine, but the thought of removing the hoodie filled her with more terror than the suffocating heat. Her mother glanced at her from across the yard, brows knitting, but said nothing. Silence ran in the family. By 20, the lump was the size of a golf ball. Still painless most days, but undeniable when she leaned back in a chair or lay on her left side. It pressed against her awareness constantly like a clock ticking in the background of every moment. At the campus library, she adjusted her seat again and again, shifting to avoid the pressure. The boy next to her finally asked if she was restless. She smiled politely, muttered something about being tired, and buried herself in her books. She didn't know how to explain that her own body had become a chair she no longer fit into. Nights were the hardest. The quiet stripped away distraction. In the dim glow of her bedside lamp, she would lift her shirt and trace the outline with her fingertips. It felt alien, as though her skin was stretched over something foreign. And yet, it was her. The contradiction tore at her. "What are you?" she whispered once, not expecting an answer. The silence replied. The hoodie became her uniform. Not just fabric, but ritual. Each morning she slid into it like a second skin, zipped it high, tucked her hair forward. Her reflection in the mirror became less of a person and more of a shadow of one. She told herself it was temporary, that one day it would shrink or fade or disappear the way bruises do when you stop pressing on them. But deep down, another voice whispered, "What if it never leaves?" That question carved itself into her bones, heavier each year. The world outside continued. Friends graduated, fell in love, traveled. Social media bloomed with images of beaches, parties, new jobs. Anna scrolled through them at night, the glow of her phone illuminating the sharp angle of her hoodie-clad shoulders. She told herself she was fine. She had work, she had classes, she had enough. But beneath the surface, the lump grew, and so did the weight of silence. The first time she considered seeing a doctor, she was 20. She sat in the waiting room of a free clinic, hands folded tightly in her lap, hoodie zipped despite the stale air that smelled of antiseptic. Her name was called, and she followed a nurse into a small, windowless room. The doctor glanced at her briefly, asked a few routine questions, and when she hesitated, she finally tugged her hoodie down to reveal the bulge. His eyes flicked to it, then back to the clipboard. He touched it once lightly like a grocery shopper checking a piece of fruit. "Probably just a lipoma," he said casually. "Fatty tissue. Harmless." She blinked. "But it's been growing." "They do that sometimes," he replied, already scribbling. "Nothing to worry about. If it bothers you, we can drain it. Otherwise, live with it." Live with it? 2 words that settled over her like chains. She left without scheduling anything. She told herself the doctor was right. Harmless. Just tissue. Nothing to worry about. But the words replayed in her mind for weeks. Live with it. She did. At 21. 22, 23, she lived with it. The lump, the silence, the hoodie. Each year, it grew. Each year, the hoodie grew heavier, not in fabric, but in meaning. And slowly, so did the distance between Anna and the life she thought she would have. If you believe no one should have to hide in silence, if you believe every story deserves to be seen, hit that subscribe button now. Because this story, Anna's story, is only beginning. By the time Anna turned 20, the world around her had accelerated into the momentum of adulthood. Friends graduated, accepted internships, wore pressed suits, and posed for pictures in front of office buildings. She watched them from the glowing rectangle of her phone, scrolling late at night, hoodie pulled tight, her body pressed into the mattress as if trying to disappear into it. Her own life moved slower. Not because she lacked ambition, Anna had dreamed of studying design, of shaping light and color into spaces that could comfort people. But each day the bulge on her back grew heavier. The marble of adolescence had become a fruit round and firm, stretching the fabric of her shirts. Sitting in class meant constant shifting, a dull ache spreading when she leaned back. In job interviews, she felt the weight of eyes flickering to her shoulder, the faint wrinkle in someone's brow before they smiled politely and continued their questions. She never got the callbacks. Silence became her answer to everything. Silence when her mother asked why she didn't go out anymore. Silence when friends invited her to the beach. Silence when strangers' eyes lingered too long, confusion hovering just beneath their courtesy. The hoodie deepened its role. What had begun as camouflage became a uniform. Anna collected them, black, gray, navy, always oversized, always with a hood large enough to shadow her face. They were armor, but also prison. She could feel the sweat sticking to her spine during humid Houston summers, could feel the fabric clinging uncomfortably to her skin, but she endured. Better the discomfort of heat than the searing sting of exposure. Jed. At 21, she tried again to seek help. Another clinic, another sterile room. A different doctor. This time younger, distracted by the buzzing of his phone in his pocket. He prodded the lump, briefly offered the same verdict: lipoma, harmless. "Can it be removed?" she asked softly. "Insurance covers some," he replied without looking up. "Might come back anyway. Up to you." His voice was mechanical, uninterested. To him, she was just another chart in a long day of charts. To Anna, his dismissal was a verdict she was not worth the trouble. She walked out, the fluorescent lights buzzing above her like judgment. Outside, the afternoon sun blazed hot against the pavement. She tightened her hoodie anyway, head down as if carrying an invisible sign that read, "Don't look too closely." Years passed in a blur of sameness. She worked odd jobs, stocking shelves, cleaning offices, answering phones in a call center. Always jobs where people didn't expect too much, where she could blend into the background. She paid rent for a small apartment with peeling paint and a stubborn leaky faucet. Nights were long marked by the steady hum of her old refrigerator and the ticking reminder of something pressing into her back each time she shifted in bed. There were moments of almost normalcy. Once a coworker invited her for coffee. For a second she considered saying yes. She even pictured herself sitting across from him, stirring cream into her cup, laughing about something ordinary. But then her hand brushed the swell on her shoulder as she pulled her hoodie on, and the fantasy shattered. She declined, politely retreating again into solitude. The weight was no longer just physical. It had sunk deeper, pressing into her chest, coiling into her voice until every word felt like a lie. Good. By 24, the lump had grown to the size of a grapefruit. It jutted outward visibly beneath fabric, now pulling the seam of her hoodie unevenly. Children noticed first, they always did. In grocery stores, their eyes widened, curiosity unfiltered. "What's wrong with her back?" one whispered loudly, tugging at his mother's sleeve. The mother hushed him quickly, shooting Anna an apologetic glance before turning away. Those moments gutted her more than the pain itself. Not the words, but the truth they revealed she could no longer pass unnoticed. The world was beginning to see what she fought so hard to hide. The physical discomfort sharpened. There were mornings when her left arm tingled, when her neck stiffened so badly she struggled to turn her head. Sometimes when she sat too long, a dull throb spread across her shoulder, like fire simmering under the skin. She ignored it, the way one learns to ignore a leaky faucet until the drip becomes part of the silence. But silence has a breaking point. It was on a night soaked in rain. Anna had lost another job. Her manager at the call center had let her go after she missed too many shifts, the pain making it impossible to sit for hours at a time. She left the building with her final paycheck in a crumpled envelope hoodie clinging wetly to her skin, the streets reflecting fractured neon. The bus stop offered little shelter. A rusted bench, a sagging roof that did nothing against the sideways wind. She sat, hunched, water dripping from the edge of her hood, soaking her jeans. Each drop felt like a nail hammered into her patience. Around her, the city pulsed on cars, hissing through puddles, horns, blaring laughter echoing from somewhere she couldn't see. Life continued vibrant and careless while she sat caged by a body she could not escape. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine disappearing completely, not just into shadows, not just into silence, but into nothing at all. The thought terrified her, yet also soothed, like the temptation of a locked door at the end of a long hallway. Her hands shook. She pulled her hood tighter, as if fabric could shield her from the storm inside her. That was the night everything shifted. Because through the curtain of rain she noticed a pair of small feet stop in front of her. Sneakers with cartoon ladybugs on them. She looked up, startled. A little girl, no older than 10, stood there holding an umbrella patterned with red and black spots. The girl's eyes were wide, unafraid, shining in the dim light. Without a word, the child tilted the umbrella over Anna's head. For a moment, Anna forgot the weight on her back. She forgot the storm, the ache, the silence. All she saw was kindness, uncalculated, unearned. The girl smiled shyly and offered something wrapped in foil, a sandwich still warm through the paper. Anna stared, her throat tight. Words caught like stones in her mouth. She could only nod, trembling, as she accepted it. From behind the girl, a woman's voice called out. Warm, steady, carrying authority, Laya. The child turned, and Anna followed her gaze. A woman stood beneath another umbrella, her presence strong, her eyes assessing. But instead of judgment, Anna saw something else there. Recognition, perhaps, even invitation. The woman stepped closer, extended her hand. "Come on," she said. "You can't stay out here like this." Anna hesitated. The storm raged inside and out. Trust felt impossible. Yet the weight on her shoulders, the endless silence pressed her forward. She took the woman's hand. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to be led out of the rain. Sometimes a single click, a single step, a single act of reaching out can change the entire story. If you've ever felt trapped in silence like Anna, share this video, subscribe, and let's remind the world, one choice can save a life. The warmth of Ms. D's hand lingered long after they left the bus stop. For Anna, it felt less like a gesture and more like an anchor, something firm to hold on to when the current threatened to sweep her away. The rain still clung to her hoodie, dripping from the hem, but inside the small apartment where they led her, the world smelled of cinnamon and simmering soup. It was modest, this home. The carpet, worn, the wallpaper faded, but it pulsed with life. Toys scattered across the floor, books stacked in uneven towers, a quilt draped carelessly over the couch. Anna stood near the doorway, uneasy, her damp sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. She wasn't used to being invited in. Most of her life lately had been spent on thresholds, bus stops, clinic, waiting rooms, scrolling past doors she never entered. Ms. D motioned toward a chair. "Sit, eat." Her voice was matter-of-fact, the tone of someone who'd seen enough storms to know that sometimes the only cure was warmth. Anna hesitated. Hunger gnawed at her ribs, but shame gnawed deeper. She tugged her hoodie closer, as if the walls themselves might strip away her cover. Before she could retreat further, the little girl appeared, Leia, clutching the ladybug umbrella like a prize. She plopped it down beside the chair and placed the sandwich she had offered earlier on the table as if it were a sacred gift. Her small fingers unwrapped the foil, releasing the scent of melted cheese and toasted bread. Anna's throat tightened. It wasn't just food. It was proof that someone saw her not as a shadow, but as a person worth feeding. She sat slowly, hands trembling as she accepted the plate. The first bite burned her tongue too hot from the skillet, but she didn't care. The warmth spread through her chest like sunlight breaking through clouds. For the first time in years, she realized how long it had been since a meal felt like comfort rather than survival. Yes. That night, Ms. D gave her the couch. The quilt smelled faintly of lavender and old detergent. Anna lay awake long after the apartment grew quiet, staring at the ceiling where faint cracks branched like rivers. Laya's quiet breathing drifted from the next room. Anna placed her hand against her shoulder, feeling the weight of the lump beneath the fabric. She had grown used to this ritual, tracing its edges, resenting its permanence. But tonight, the anger dulled. There was something stronger than the ache, a fragile sense of safety she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she let her eyes close without dread. Days turned into weeks. Ms. D never pressed her for details, never asked for explanations beyond what Anna could give. She seemed to understand that silence itself was a language and sometimes the only one a wounded soul could speak. Anna helped where she could, washing dishes, folding laundry, walking Laya to school. The hoodie remained always zipped, but within these walls it felt less like armor and more like habit. One evening, Laya tugged her sleeve with the insistence only children possess. "Come watch," she said, dragging Anna toward the glowing rectangle of the television. On the screen, a woman in a white coat leaned over a patient. Her hands were steady, her tone calm, her eyes kind. She spoke gently as she examined a man with a lump so large it deformed his neck. The camera captured everything. The fear in his eyes, the patience in hers the moment when he agreed to let her help. Anna froze. She knew that shape, that terror. It was her own reflection staring back at her from another skin. The name appeared at the bottom of the screen, Dr. Sandra Lee. Leia beamed. She fixes people. Look, see, they had lumps too, bigger even. And she helped them. Anna's breath caught. On the screen, the man's surgery unfolded, precise incisions. Careful hands, the weight of the mass lifted away. The patient wept with relief. Anna pressed her palm against her hoodie against the swollen outline beneath. Could it be that simple, that someone somewhere might actually see her pain as worth treating? That night, long after Miss D and Leia had gone to bed, Anna sat at the kitchen table with the glow of an old laptop illuminating her face. The rain tapped softly against the window, a gentler echo of the night she had been rescued. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "Dear Dr. Lee, my name is Anna Thompson. I am 25 years old. For 8 years, I've been living with a lump on my shoulder that has grown so large I can barely move without pain. I hide it under hoodies. I have no insurance, no money. I've been told it's harmless, but it's not. It's taken my life away from me. Please." I don't know where else to turn. She stared at the words, heart pounding. They felt naked, raw, more vulnerable than she had ever been. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. Send. One click. Fear surged. What if she never responds? What if I am not worth her time? What if I am just another case, another shadow too heavy to lift? Her chest tightened. She moved the cursor toward delete, but then she remembered the umbrella tilting over her head, the sandwich pressed into her hands, the warmth of Ms. D's couch. She remembered the man on the screen crying with relief as his burden was lifted. Her hand steadied. One breath, one heartbeat, one click. The email was gone, carried into the unknown. Anna closed the laptop and sat in silence, her hoodie damp with sweat, her body trembling. But beneath the fear there was something new, small, fragile, but real, hope. Sometimes hope begins not as a roar, but as a whisper, a single email, a single step, a single moment of courage. If you believe in stories like Anna's, don't just watch, share, subscribe. Be part of the moment someone dares to hope again. The email reply arrived 3 days later. Anna opened it with trembling hands, half expecting silence, half bracing for rejection. Instead, the words glowed on the screen like a door cracked open. Anna, thank you for reaching out. I can only imagine the strength it took to share your story. I would like to help. Please come to my clinic in California for an evaluation. We will find a way. Signed, Dr. Sandra Lee. Anna read it once, then twice, then again, until the words blurred. It didn't feel real. That someone had not only read her pain but answered her was almost unbearable. The journey west felt like a pilgrimage. Ms. D had pressed a bus ticket into her hands, refusing repayment. Go, she said simply, as though she knew this moment was bigger than either of them. Leia hugged Anna fiercely, her ladybug umbrella tucked under her arm like a secret talisman. The bus rolled through endless stretches of desert and mountain, the windows rattling with every mile. Anna sat hunched in her hoodie, clutching her small backpack. Fear whispered at every rest stop. What if it's too late? What if she looks at you and shakes her head? What if you are too broken to fix? But beneath the fear ran another current. What if this is the moment your life begins again? The clinic was bright, filled with the scent of antiseptic and the quiet hum of machines. White walls reflected light so clean it almost hurt her eyes. Patients sat in neat rows, each carrying their own invisible stories beneath clothing, beneath skin. For the first time, Anna removed her hoodie in public. Her fingers fumbled with the zipper, slow, reluctant. Fabric fell away. Gasps echoed faintly. A child whispered just as they always had. What's wrong with her back? But instead of retreating, Anna stood still. She felt their eyes, their questions, but this time she let them land. She was no longer just a shadow. She was here to be seen. Dr. Lee entered the room with a presence both commanding and kind. Her voice was calm, her eyes steady. She examined the swelling, carefully tracing the edges with clinical precision, but also with a gentleness that made Anna's throat ache. "This is large," she said softly, almost to herself, "but we can remove it. It won't be easy, but you don't have to carry this anymore." Tears stung Anna's eyes. She had imagined 1,000 verdicts, too late, too big, too hopeless. But never this. Deki. The day of surgery arrived. Anna lay on the operating table, the lights above glaring like suns. Her heart hammered against her ribs, her breaths shallow beneath the oxygen mask. The room was cold, filled with the metallic clink of instruments. Around her, voices moved with practiced ease, but to Anna they blurred into a single current of sound. She thought of the girl at 17 standing in front of a fogged mirror, discovering a marble-sized secret beneath her skin. She thought of every hoodie pulled tight, every night spent tracing the outline of the thing that had stolen her life. She thought of rain at the bus stop, of a sandwich pressed into her hands, of an email typed in desperation. Now, here she was, at the edge of a surrender, at the threshold of release. The anesthetic swept her under like a tide. When she woke, the world was quiet. The ceiling above was soft white, the air warm. Her body ached heavy, wrapped in bandages that tugged when she shifted. But something was missing, something she had carried for 8 long years. She lifted her hand, shakily reached toward her shoulder. Her fingertips touched flatness, smoothness. Her breath hitched. Tears spilled before she could stop them. The weight was gone. Dr. Lee's face appeared above her eyes, kind smile, gentle. "You did well. It's out. You're free." The word rang louder than any pain. The scar would remain a thin line carved into her skin, a reminder of the burden she once bore. But Anna knew scars were not just wounds. They were proof of survival, of battles fought, of shadows overcome. She lay back against the pillow, exhausted, trembling, but lighter than she had ever been. The hoodie, folded neatly on the chair, no longer felt like armor. It felt like history. Some scars are not curses. They are maps of survival, proof that healing is possible. If you believe healing stories deserve to be heard, subscribe now. Because Anna's journey does not end with surgery, it begins there. The morning light spilled across the hospital blinds like ribbons of gold. For the first time in nearly a decade, Anna felt the sun touch her skin without the press of fabric layered tight against her back. She lay still, listening to the faint beeps of monitors, the shuffle of nurses' shoes in the hallway, the hum of ordinary life. And then she reached back her fingers, brushing over the dressing taped neatly across her shoulder. It was flat, smooth, empty of the weight she had carried like a stone lodged into her flesh. The realization was almost unbearable in its simplicity. Something that had defined her life for so long, shaping every decision, shadowing every dream, was gone, removed in a few hours by steady hands and sharp steel. Relief surged like light through cracks, but with it came something stranger: fear. Who was she now, without her armor of shame? The day she left the clinic, she folded the hoodie carefully into her backpack. She couldn't bring herself to throw it away, but she also couldn't bring herself to wear it. For years, it had been her shield, her hiding place, the cocoon she crawled into. Now, stepping into the California sunlight in a simple cotton shirt, she felt naked, exposed. The air touched her scar. The breeze brushed her skin, and she shivered not from cold, but from a strange liberation. People passed her on the street. Some glanced, some didn't. None stared. None whispered. The silence was different now. It wasn't born of judgment, but of indifference. She was just another face in the crowd. Anna almost cried at the ordinariness of it. Jade. Recovery was slow. There were stitches to protect muscles to rebuild a body that had to remember how to carry itself without imbalance. She spent long afternoons walking slowly around the neighborhood, each step a negotiation between fragility and strength. But the greater recovery happened inside. At night, she dreamt of mirrors, the old mirror where she had hidden herself for years. In the dreams, she would unzip the hoodie and watch as the reflection stepped forward, scar-bared eyes steady. Sometimes she woke weeping, unsure if it was grief for the years lost or gratitude for the years ahead. When she returned to Texas, Ms. D and Leah were waiting. Leah squealed when she saw Anna without her hoodie running into her arms, small hands patting the scar as if to check that it was real. "You look free," Ms. D said simply, and Anna realized she did. The world, however, still carried its reminders. At the grocery store, a stranger's eyes drifted briefly to the line across her shoulder. Not in horror, not in pity, just curiosity. For the first time, Anna didn't flinch. She even smiled. Her scar was no longer a secret to hide. It was a story written into her skin, a reminder of what she had survived. She began to write again, something she had abandoned years ago. At first, just notes in a journal, fragments of memory sketches of nights heavy with silence, the taste of rain at the bus stop, the glow of Dr. Lee's clinic lights. Then, longer passages shaped into a narrative. She found herself telling the story not to purge the pain, but to honor the journey. Months passed, and one afternoon she received a message from Dr. Lee's office. They wanted to feature her story on their channel alongside others who had carried visible burdens into the light. Anna hesitated. The thought of millions of strangers watching her scar, her tears, her vulnerability, it terrified her. But then, she thought of herself at 17, at 24, sitting in the rain, convinced she was alone in her silence. If even one person like that could see her story and feel less invisible, then perhaps the scar was not just hers. It belonged to them, too. She agreed. The video went live weeks later. It opened with her sitting in the clinic, eyes shadowed by years of hiding. It showed the lump, the surgery, the bandaged shoulder, and then it showed her walking into the light, hair-brushed back. Hoodie, gone the scar, faint but proud. The comments poured in. "I've been hiding my own condition for years. Thank you for giving me courage." Her smile at the end broke me. "She's so strong. She's beautiful." Anna read them through tears. The years of whispers, of children's questions, of dismissive doctors, they didn't vanish, but they softened. For every cruel glance she had endured, there were now 100 voices speaking kindness into the void. The final hoodie remained folded at the bottom of her drawer. Sometimes she touched it fingertips, brushing the fabric worn thin from a decade of fear. But she never wore it again. She no longer needed armor. Her life was not perfect. There were still bills to pay, jobs to search for, a body to care for. But she had something she had not known since she was a child. She had freedom. And more than that, she had a voice. Anna began to volunteer at a local support group, sitting with others who carried scars both visible and unseen. She listened to their stories, shared pieces of her own. She learned that healing was not a finish line, but a rhythm, an ebb and flow of courage and vulnerability. And in the quiet moments she still heard the echo of rain, the shuffle of small feet, the voice of a woman saying, "You can't stay out here like this." That night had saved her. That choice had led her here. Kate, when the weight you've carried is finally lifted, the world feels different, lighter, wider, alive with possibility. Anna's story reminds us that healing is not just survival. It is the chance to begin again. If her journey moved you, subscribe now, because every click helps bring another hidden story into the light. Scars are strange things. They begin as wounds, raw red, angry reminders of pain, but over time they soften, they fade, they turn into something else proof that the body remembers, but also that the body heals. For Anna, her scar became more than proof. It became a compass. Months after her surgery, she stood in front of a mirror in her small apartment in Houston. The hoodie still lay at the bottom of her drawer, untouched, a relic of another life. She pulled her shirt gently off her shoulder, gazing at the pale line etched into her skin. It curved, like a quiet river, like a seam holding two halves together. She traced it with her fingertip. Once she would have cried. Now she smiled. It was not ugly. It was not shame. It was survival stitched into her body. Life, of course, did not transform into a fairy tale. There were days when the scar pulled tight, when her muscles ached from the weight they had carried for years. There were mornings she still hesitated before leaving her apartment, phantom fear whispering, "They will stare. They will know." But then she would step into the sunlight, shoulders bare, and realize the whispers were only echoes. The world had moved on, and so had she. The video continued to spread. Weeks turned into months, and the view count climbed into the millions. People from around the world wrote letters, some long, some only a sentence, but each carrying the same truth. "You made me feel less alone." Anna read them all. Each one felt like a thread weaving her scar into something larger than herself, a tapestry of survival stitched across continents. She began speaking at small gatherings, first at a local community center, then at health fairs, then at high schools where teenagers sat fidgeting, their eyes shifting between curiosity and their own hidden burdens. Anna never used dramatic words. She didn't need to. She simply told the truth. "I carried something on my body for years that I thought would define me forever. I hid it under layers of fabric, under silence. But I learned that the things we hide don't disappear, they only grow heavier. And sometimes healing begins the moment we let ourselves be seen." The room would always grow quiet at that point, as if every scar in the room leaned closer to listen. Her scar did not make her extraordinary. What made her extraordinary was that she chose to live beyond it. Anna found work at a small library. She shelved books, answered questions, guided children to stories. The job was quiet, humble, but it suited her. Among shelves of words and voices, she felt at home. She often wondered how many of those books had been born from scars, wounds turned into sentences, pain turned into prose. At night, she kept writing her own. The journal filled quickly, pages spilling with memories and reflections. She wrote not only about the lump, but about rain-soaked nights, sandwiches wrapped in foil, a child's umbrella shaped like a ladybug. These were the stitches of her survival, and she wanted to honor them all. One evening, she visited Miss D and Leia again. The apartment was the same worn carpet, toys scattered warmth in every corner. Leia, taller now, held the ladybug umbrella in her hands. "I still have it," she grinned. "But you don't need it anymore, do you?" Anna shook her head. "No, I don't." She realized then how a single act of kindness had shifted the entire course of her life. That umbrella had shielded her not just from rain, but from despair. It had reminded her that even the smallest gesture could crack open the heaviest night. Years would pass. The scar would fade, though never vanish. People would forget, but Anna never did. Because the burden she once carried became the foundation of her freedom. She learned that healing is not about erasing what hurt us. It is about carrying it differently, about choosing to let it remind us of strength rather than shame. And so, each morning, she would step into the day without armor, without fear, without the weight of invisibility pressing on her shoulders. Scars are not the end of the story. They are the place where the story changes. Anna's story changed the night rain poured when a child held out an umbrella. It changed the moment she clicked send. It changed under the sharp light of an operating room when a burden of 8 years was lifted from her body. But the greatest change of all came quietly in the way she chose to live afterward, open, unhidden, free. Every scar carries a story. Some are whispered, some are hidden, some are shared with the world. Anna's scar reminds us that no weight is too heavy to lay down, no shadow too dark to step out of. If her journey touched you, share it. Keep listening. Keep believing. And if you haven't already subscribed for every story you help carry, you might just be the reason someone else finds their freedom.